Hi there. So this is Hear the Raw podcast. I'm Paul Schneider. Today's guest, we have Falk. I think I've said that hopefully with my best German accent. Falk is a survivor of testicular cancer. And without further ado, I'm going to go into the interview. So, hi, Falk.
Hi, Paul. How are you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good.
Good. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for getting in touch, and thanks for your shares and support of the podcast as well. It's really appreciated. Thank you. Um, I always start with finding out who you are. I've got to know you through talking. So who is Falk? Tell us about you.
Yeah, I try to keep that short and sweet, which is usually difficult once you get started. Um, you already made a good point with the German accent. So I am a cancer survivor. Yes, I'm a German cancer survivor, which has probably a lot to do with the fact that I'm actually still here, or at least to raise the chances that I was going to be here in the end, being in Germany, where treatment is slightly different than over here. Other than that, I came to the UK quite a few years ago as an architect, enjoying my work, doing what I do best, have my family over here, and cancer is more a distant memory for me, to be honest, because testicular cancer, as you said, was the diagnosis, and it's a young man's cancer.
Yeah.
So, as you can tell, I'm not the youngest anymore, so it must obviously happened some time ago. Nevertheless, it had a lasting impact on my life, which we're probably going to come to at some point as well, to talk about that in more detail. But yeah, a happy-go-lucky person that has literally, you couldn't tell that I have gone through cancer by the way how I behave today, because it was almost 3 decades ago.
That happy-go-lucky really came across in the conversation we had a couple of 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I think it's an important point of this interview. We'll come on to that for sure. It's quite a fascinating approach you took mentally to your journey. So tell us, what was your diagnosis and the journey to get there? And part three of this question is, how did it affect you mentally at the time?
Yes. Okay. That's a really good one. I love this part of the story pretty much the most, actually, because I came into this and got my diagnosis without actually knowing what is happening because it went so quick. What happened was that basically I was in the shower. I noticed a lump on one of my testes and realized, don't do the men thing and sit it out. Go and see a doctor. So I called the doctor. They saw me straight away the next day. Um, Looked at it. It took only 30 seconds, and I said, okay, tomorrow you go into the hospital for a biopsy. And I said, okay, not even asking any questions because I was just like, okay, they were so quick and so secure in the way how they address it that I thought they must be knowing what they're doing. Well, they're doctors, of course they do. So I just went to the hospital the next morning. The next morning in the hospital was the first time that I actually see, okay, what am I here for? My doctor gave me a piece of paper. I showed it to them. For the first time, I looked at the paper, and the thing that actually struck my eye first was the semi-castration that was basically on there. Which is basically saying, okay, make the bull half an ox and take one of the testes out. When I spoke to the doctors in hospital, they actually pointed me to say, like, while there is a suspicion of cancer,
Yeah.
and the normal procedure is basically puts you to sleep, takes a biopsy, check if it's carcinogenic, and if it is, takes a testy out.
Yeah.
And leave one inside, so that you then still can have family later or something like that. And that is exactly what happened. I basically woke up the next morning. They put me to sleep in the morning, and it was like in a movie, when they go put you into the tranquilizers and everything, and then roll you along the corridor, and you see the lights on the top of the ceiling basically passing when you're falling into the half-conscious state already. And then all I remember when I woke up, basically, I felt totally normal and had one testicle less. So the diagnosis, well, from me actually finding something to the thing being addressed and sort of sorted 2 days. That is how things are done over there in Germany. It just goes really quick in these sort of instances where they say that is basically an emergency because they want to avoid spreading of the cancer, obviously, as quickly as possible.
Out of interest, Falk, do they in Germany have the equivalent of an NHS system, or what's the medical
Absolutely,
system?
yes.
Yeah,
You have the. I mean, it's the same struggle as over here with the NHS. You know,
right.
don't get me wrong. It's like we have now, or back then we had when we went to go to see our GP, had to basically pay €10 per quarter. If we see them, or if we don't see them, we don't pay the money, obviously. But if we want to see them, we pay €10, not per visit, but per quarter, and then we can see them 4 times or whatever without having to pay again. So they have to outsource more and more towards private as well. But all my treatment, all public sector. So basically, the whole community paid for it. Yeah.
So you found out very quickly that you had a
Yes.
testicle removed and you
Yes.
had testicular cancer. You were a younger man. Were you married? Had
Yes.
you had children? What was the
No,
effect
I
on
didn't have.
you
I
with
didn't have
regards to that?
children. I had a long-going girlfriend. No family yet. Was basically 26 years of age when it happened. No,
Wow.
20, 26, 27. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Long enough. So no family. I was still at university at that time. That's another beauty in Germany. University for free and all this sort of stuff. Different story.
Yeah.
And but again, it's like it's part of the whole story. So yeah, no family, no job because I was at university still. So nothing that really that would put me into a certain routine. But being the typical me, I was the person that when I was at university, I was working on the site in 2 different jobs at the same time. Was helping everybody as soon as they were asking me, I would always be there. Yeah, no problem. I'm gonna hear, I'm gonna help, I'm gonna do this. And I took care of everybody apart from myself. And so for me, during the later treatment that then came with the cancer, it just dawned on me that this, I interpreted it as a sign, my body basically telling me, take it slowly because
Okay.
you're taking care of everyone, but not of yourself. And it's
What
now time to change that.
what was your lifestyle like then at the time?
My lifestyle, I was, well, as a typical student, you know, it's like you go out, you drink on the weekends, you smoke. I did smoke a lot. I started smoking when I was 13 years old because that was my parents' divorce and lots of uncertainty around my life, how it's going to develop and everything. Living a little bit with my father, then changed to live with my mother and all these. My mother, heavy smoker, so I took it on as well.
Right.
And even during treatment, I was still smoking. And believe it or not, back then, hospital, you were allowed to smoke in hospital when you
Yeah.
go into the stairwell. Yeah, so everybody who was having on this on my ward, who was dealing with cancer in one sort, or one way or the other, they all were coming and meeting at the stairwell to have a cigarette. Now, I spoke to my doctor back then, and obviously everybody's going to tell you cancer, smoking, no good.
Yeah.
And my doctor said, like, of course it's no good, but I'm not going to ask you to quit now because your body is dealing with so much stuff already.
Yeah.
It's no point putting additional stress onto this one. And this really, that had a very big influence on my mindset, how I addressed the whole thing, because it's not so much about all the time doing everything by the book and doing it the right way, the way how it's expected, the way how science is telling you to deal with things. It is actually about looking at the situation you are in at that moment and finding the right way of dealing with it mentally and also with what's actually going to happen in terms of treatment. The treatment part, obviously, I was in the best hands. We had the doctors there, the nurses, everybody was great. And I trusted them 100%. In the same way that, and we spoke about that when we had our very initial contact, where I'm just saying, if a car breaks down, I bring it to a garage because they fix it. If a body breaks down, you bring it to the hospital because they fix it. That's how it works, you know, and you're not bringing your car to the garage for them to basically scrap it because
No.
the
Yeah.
point is you pay money for it and then they say, okay, it's gone. You can find that out yourself. So you go to a hospital, for me, it was never a question that there's a potential death at the end. That didn't happen. That never came to my mind. Everybody else, you know, all my friends, family, and everything, they were more worried than I was. I was like a little child going to hospital, and it's like, oh, that's all new. I want to understand what's going on here. That's exciting more than anything. And doctors and nurses did the exact right thing because they picked up on this and never had this doom and gloom atmosphere around me. It's not that the ward was full of leaflets, what you do in the case of cancer and all these. It was all much more friendly and nice. Yeah. So it sounds weird when I say that, because nice and cancer is not really something that you put into the same sentence usually. I do, because in my personal story, I had a through and through positive experience, which is why it was when I saw you initially on social media, I thought, like, I want to contribute, because it's such an important message to give people a positive outlook on stuff. And I appreciate testicular cancer, when discovered early, which it was, is having a very good chance of healing. So people could say, well, yeah, your cancer is not really a proper cancer. I wouldn't go there.
I know what you mean. Yeah.
But nevertheless, science says it's the easiest healable cancer, or with the highest rate of healing. So yeah, I was lucky, sort of, if you can call it that. Nevertheless, the outcome, that's the important bit, and that came for me. And after all the treatment I received, and it wasn't just the removal of the testicle initially, there was obviously further treatment on there planned. The very first one was that obviously after the testicle went out, we had a scan of the upper body to see if there's any spread on the lymphatic system, and unfortunately there was, which then meant we need to do a second operation. And today I have a nice, I always call it a teddy bear scar, where they basically put the stuffing in on my belly, which has been tacked with 33 metal clamps. Originally, which is really weird, because I always thought people get sewn like you see in the movies, but no, they do that now with metal tacks somehow.
Staples, aren't they?
Staples, that's the word, exactly. And put it together better that way, which is really weird and really odd. And that actually was a very strange experience. We couldn't do the operation straight away because I had teeth problems, was constantly eating aspirin to deal with the pain. Aspirin, blood thinner, not good if you're going into an operation. So doctor said, you need to sort that out first. So I had to conquer one of my other fears, which is dentists, first, to get that sorted, to then come back. They said, in the meantime, we are going to do chemotherapy and try to deal with that way. And if we're lucky, we don't need to operate in the end. I said, okay, let's go. So I had 3 cycles of chemotherapy as well at that time, which started really, really bad. And then turned out to be really easy. Yeah.
But bad in what way, Falk?
Oh, it's like it was 3 weeks, as well, 3 cycles of 3 weeks with 1 week in hospital, basically, being on the needle. I had brown spots all over both my lower arms from needles, because obviously the chemicals, they don't make any differentiation if it's a good cell or a bad cell. They just destroy everything that comes their way. And where the needle hits the body, that's where it all concentrates. So it looked awful. It looked really awful. But you know, I'm not so much about optics. I don't care. It should just work. That is the most important bit, and it did. But it was the first night was terrible, 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 terrible. I was
sickness
basically for the first time. Oh, it probably was more mental that I was going crazy, because on the ward we had testicular cancer patients and prostate cancer patients. They were the only ones on the ward, and the prostate cancer patients were all, well, way above my age. Today it would see different, because now they would be my age. Back then they were just like all old people. Yeah, and I was put onto a room with 6 beds in them, 5 beds were taken by prostate cancer patients. I'm sitting there thinking, like, why do they do that? It's like I'm sitting here now with nobody I can relate to, not age-wise, not diagnosis-wise. So that's really odd. I don't like it. I really didn't like it. And then I put the needle in, and obviously everybody's going like, oh, you know, getting your first chemicals into your arm and all this. And I was thinking that probably unsettled me, to be honest. Yeah, because it was suddenly it was not a friendly bit anymore, because it must have been more or less a late shifts at work that didn't know me from before. And everybody was like, yeah. So as soon as I put the needle in and put the stuff in and everything, I was sitting there like awful in the evening. Then everybody falls asleep and I'm sitting there not feeling well. Not sick, but not feeling well, feeling uncertain, feeling unstable for the first time in the
Right.
whole experience, where I felt like, I don't like this. I really don't like this.
Was it
And
the
then
reality of what was going on?
it's probably part of that it just dawned on me, like, this is like, I'm now sitting here with a needle in my arm, and you know, the testicle removal, that takes 20 minutes. Yeah. And
Yeah.
here they tell me I now have to sleep with a needle in my arm. That wasn't great. And I woke up at night and I felt really bad and I was crying for the
Yeah.
first time. I lost my positivity and I was crying, not because I felt like everything is terrible. Yeah, I was crying because I was with strange people in the room, which I had no relation to. I had no visitors. Well, you don't have visitors at midnight in hospital, obviously, because it was just too late.
Mm.
But I just felt it was all too unfamiliar. And I called the nurses and said, like, you need to give me something. I'm feeling really awful, really sick. It's like, you know, like this migraine sickness where you feel like all the time you want to vomit, but you can't.
Yeah.
And that just was constantly there. And you can't sleep when that is happening. Yeah. And when you can't sleep, you feel even worse. It's just, and because my brain is quite capable, I obviously build up all this negativity, and I piled it up myself super high to make it as worse as possible. Yeah. Not good. Really stupid, actually. Yeah. I told the nurse, please let me have something. Give me something to make me feel better. She said, oh, let me just wait. I'm going to call the doctor and he's going to give you some cortisol. I said,
Right.
no, okay. I heard everything about cortisol, not a nice thing to have, but okay, if it helps, give it to me. Yeah. Again, yeah. If the mechanic in the garage says this is what we need to do to your car, yeah, go ahead. If the doctor says this is what we need to go, no discussion, just get going with it, please.
Yes.
And as soon as the doctor came in with the needle and the cortisone, which was basically put into the little tube that went into my arm, then as soon as he basically injects it in there, I said, like, oh, that's great. I'm feeling good now. Can I have this every day, please, when I have the chemicals in my arm?
Yeah.
And they looked at me and they looked at each other and said, yeah, of course, we give you that every day now, no problem. And so they did. Every day they came with a little syringe and put the stuff in there. And I was like the happiest person on earth. I was like, oh, I'm feeling great. Everything is really cool. No problem whatsoever. And we did that. Then obviously after the second cycle, they said, okay, it's now time for you to cut your hair short, because, well,
Oh,
that
right.
was the
Yeah.
90s.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we did back then. Nowadays, you look at it and think, no. Today, I think you say men bun. Back then, we had our long hair off.
Yeah.
Open.
Yeah.
And we had to cut it. Yeah. And so I did. At hospital, actually, one of the nurses cut my hair, which I found absolutely amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I was telling the doctors during the chemotherapy, when I have my 1 week in hospital, I have 2 weeks where I'm only coming in at the weekends. Can I please go to work during these weeks? And they said, you can do whatever. If you feel like you want to go to work, do it. And I
Yeah.
said, yeah, I really love my job. I was back then, I said earlier, I was at university, but I also worked in an architect's practice at the time to really see if I like it.
Yeah.
And so I did. I went to the office every day. And one day I was basically sitting at the office, leaning over my drawings. That was in the second cycle of chemotherapy, and was stretching my head. And when I was stretching my head, I had suddenly lots of hair falling onto my drawing. Yeah, so and I just went with my fingers and did like a scissor on my hair, and I
Yeah.
could pull my hair out, and it looked like I have a piece of grass on my fingers.
Wow.
There's a hair
Yeah.
standing up on my fingers, like that. Really odd. And you could say, most people would probably go there and say, "Oh my God, what's happening?" And my colleagues did. And I was actually sitting there saying to my colleagues, "Hey, come here. It's so funny. Look what's happening to me." And I was
Yeah.
ruffling my hair and it was flying everywhere. And I was doing again the scissors and showed them, "Look, you can pull my hair out like this. Have a go, have a go, have a try." Because it is this naivety to just say everything happens for the first time. You want
Yeah.
to sort of enjoy it. Everything that happens to you for the first time is somehow a positive experience because it is the first time it happens to you. That's a great thing. Everything adds into this archive of things in your head that makes up wisdom at age. Yeah.
Yes.
So I felt like, that's so weird. Look at my head, just falls out like this. I loved it. I found it incredibly funny. My colleagues, they were all like, "Oh my God," they weren't sure how to react to it. My girlfriend, she wasn't sure how to react to it. And it's like, I said, "Hey, it's nothing. It's part of it. They told me it's going to happen. So what's the deal?" Yeah.
Yeah.
Went back to hospital and they said, like, "Okay, let's shave it." And I said, "Okay." So just put some shaving foam on there and shaved my head. And this is what I look like since. With no hair on my head because it never grew back.
Oh,
Which
really?
was
Oh, right. Okay.
it's literally it's like it's all right here on the sides, but on
Yeah.
the top. So I said, I want hair only on the sides. I'm not going to do that, or maybe even a comb over. Not a question. That's never going to happen. So live up to it. The good thing is that's a pumpkin that I have there between my shoulders. Looks quite all right in shape. So happy that I can wear it without hair.
I think, Falk, I think,
So
I think,
since then, never really grew my hair back. Was actually quite all right.
I think a key question here is testicular cancer. A pretty young chap you were.
Yeah.
How were you regarding body conscious issues and also relationship and potentially child producing, concerns? How were you on that front?
It was a really good point, actually. No, the thing is, like, I as a young chap, I was probably very quickly realizing I'm not one of the handsome ones. That changed when I turned older. Now, when I have gray hair or gray beard, I'm actually looking better than I was young.
Yeah.
My wife says so, at least when she sees photos of me when I was younger. And she said, "I prefer you the way how you look now." My girlfriend back then, she was really cool, actually. She never made me feel awkward about anything because I can imagine during treatment, I was not the healthiest looking,
Yeah.
with big bags under your eyes, very pale, and it takes a toll on your body. Yeah,
Yeah.
the treatment, but overall, now I was cool with it. It was. I had no problem with my body. It was interesting because they offered me, they offered me during the treatment when I was there for my chemotherapy. They said we can give you a silicone testicle to
Oh, right.
basically
Yeah.
balance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I said, like, really? No, absolutely no chance. I don't want anything like that. It's like that's the one. It doesn't do anything. It's just like carry an extra weight around for what? It doesn't. It has no function. So
Yeah.
no, no. And it's like, I'm not running around showing everybody my testicles to say, like, "Oh, look, there are two of them."
I
So
hope not.
it was out of question. So I said no.
Yeah.
But they explained to me there are obviously a lot of people in the gay community, for example, where it's very important. Yeah,
Yeah.
that it's aesthetically all in balance and everything. So I appreciate that. It's not for me. I don't need it because it's like if you tell me that's the one testicle that I have is still functional, I'm good with that. So I said no, thank you. And yeah, interestingly enough, after my first operation, when they removed the testicle, obviously waking up the next morning, it was like, is it still going to work? Is there anything there that
Yes.
can make? So I obviously had to test to see it works. And
Was that
okay,
sorry? Was that a sperm count test?
so say again.
Was that a sperm count test?
Yeah, no. That was my self-made hen test, basically, to see if there's anything coming when I'm doing stuff. So,
Okay.
and yes, before the operation, you're actually right. I completely forgot about that. They froze some of my sperm to basically say,
Right.
in case something does go wrong, then you can at least have kids that way. I completely forgot about that. This is how my memory of all
Yeah.
this is. It's so distant, and quite, yeah. It didn't have any importance for me to then keep it in my mind, because I never got back to it, because I had a son after a few years after. Basically, yeah, 4 years later, I actually got my son, which is now 20 something. And I'm married now to a different woman and have a daughter with her who just turned 13 in December. So on that front, everything worked fine, and nothing to be worried about. And to be fair, I never did. I never worried about saying like
No.
it's not going to happen, and or anything like that. Um, yeah, it's like in both occasions with my kids, actually, it was like that. The girls I was with, they were supposedly having problem to conceive,
Right.
but one shot and hits a target, and in both cases pregnant straight away. Yeah, after we said we're gonna try, so it all worked. So obviously didn't renew my subscription for frozen sperm, because
Yeah.
sorry, no need.
Yeah.
Yeah, um, that was quite okay. So
Amazing.
on that front, body consciousness, family, everything perfect. Where I say like, yeah, no problem there. Because, and I think it's a big part of it, because I never really worried about it. It went well because I didn't care if I have one testicle or two.
Yeah.
It wasn't a concern. It went well because it's not going to happen to me that I can't have children. It was no, in the same way that I am not going to die of this one, because it isn't even a thought. Yeah,
Correct.
it's like you send a small child for the first time onto a field to look at cows. They're not gonna stand there and say like it's gonna kill me. Yeah, it could happen, of course. We all know that stampede and all this, but
Yeah.
that's not what the child thinks about.
No.
And that is what I do, and that is what I do up to today. I am still having this mindset of a 5-year-old sometimes, where I just say things just happen. On many things, it doesn't make any sense to waste any thoughts of them about it, because it's not going to change anything. Things do happen. Full stop.
Was that a conscious mindset then, or that was just part of your nature, Falk?
I think it is probably part of my nature. It came out then that I started becoming more conscious of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was always, before that, you could probably call me an avoider. Yeah. I won't think about something because I would just avoid thinking about something.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Taking responsibility, not taking accountability, and all this. During the cancer treatment, I realized it's the best way to go through life. And not necessarily only because of the cancer and how it all came together, because the doctors said afterwards it was just the best patient they ever had. No side effects, even after the second operation. The second operation, when they had to open me to basically remove this, I had one single lymph node that was still too large. And because the cancer I had wasn't one that eats all the cells around, it was one that just grows on its own and basically displaces everything around it. This lymph node was right on my main artery. So
Oh
they said,
wow.
if
Right.
that, it can take seconds and you die. And I said, like, well, okay, where's the table? Put me on there and get stuff out. Yeah, because I asked the question, do we really need to do it? I've got 3 cycles of chemotherapy. And they said, I'm afraid so, yes. And I said, okay, let's get on with it. Yeah.
Incredible. You've clearly always been open and very sharing of your story. Hence, leading you to this interview. So, on that basis, what surprised you most about people's attitude to you and your cancer? Your friends or close people around you, work
Yeah.
colleagues, etc.
It ranged from around the whole spectrum of reactions you could potentially get. There were people that couldn't deal with it. They wouldn't visit me in hospital because they say they can't deal with the topic at all. I had a neighbor in my house that was basically meeting me every now and then, on the stairwell when you walk up and down in your,
Yeah.
in your apartment block. And he met me one day on the street, seeing me the first time without hair, and asked me if I lost a bet. And I said, there wasn't a bet. I have cancer and I'm just getting chemotherapy. That's why I lost my hair. And
Yeah.
he was very apologetic and everything. I said, don't worry, don't worry. It's no taboo for me. It's like the most natural thing. We need to talk about these things. Before I had testicular cancer, I didn't know this illness exists. After that, I realized in conversations with friends, everybody knew somebody who had it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's far more common, but nobody ever talks about it. And I'm sitting there saying, why? It's wrong. You need to talk about it because, particularly because the young men cancer, young men, when they have something happening down there, they're all like, oh, I don't want to deal with it. Yeah, I had one patient in the same room as me who only came to hospital or went to the doctor when his testicle was as big as a tennis ball. I said, how can you wait that long? Because you don't know anything about it, because we don't talk about it. So it's really important to raise these things. Yeah. During my stays at hospital, we had open visiting times. So people could come at 6 o'clock in the morning and could stay until 10 if they wanted to in the evening. And I had constantly people coming to see me. That was, when we're talking about surprises, that was the best thing that actually happened, where I thought, like, this is great. Where I usually am the one who's always helping and is there for everybody else. Suddenly everybody was there for me. And I really enjoyed that. I really liked that because it just gave me the right impression. Sometimes it was so many people coming there that I had to send people home and say, like, sorry guys, I just had already 3 visitors today. I need a moment to myself because
that's okay, right?
Really
and that's okay. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And everybody said, like, yeah, no problem. I'll come back tomorrow. Yeah. So it's great. It was really good. My father, he surprised me the most. The hospital was not on his way to work. It was way off, actually. And every single day after work, he would come in, even if it's only for 5 minutes to say hello. That was great. That was really, really great. I really appreciated that, and had a very big impact. Yeah,
That's amazing. I hear all too often, as well as the people that are amazing through our journeys that support us, there's always those few handful of or whatever that pop into your mind in a way that where have they been? Why haven't they contacted me? And where I'm leading to with this is that what I've learned talking to you is that your want to share and educate. Am I right in saying it's to educate not just people going through testicular cancer or any other cancer journey with the mindset that you applied, but also for people that are around it? So close to?
Yeah, to be honest, I think that I would be a great mentor, and I have mentored people because I like sharing stuff. I like talking stuff. There's no limit, there's no filter. If I talk about stuff, I talk absolutely openly.
Yeah.
And I tell people when things go wrong in my life, many things went wrong. But in my life also, a lot of things went really, really good. And I love sharing this because everybody can take out of these stories whatever they feel is appropriate for them. For example, it's like I'm not a big reader, for example, but I love the books that I like reading are biographies. I love life stories. And in the same way, I love telling my own life story and giving people a good download on it. And cancer is a big part of that.
Yes.
Well, it's not a big part of it. Cancer is part of that because I went through it and I've put it behind me, and luckily enough, always the best possible outcome. It's like, yeah, if there's one thing that comes out of it, my pants are not very tight because I don't have some, and that is, you're laughing about this because this is exactly what is the important bit for me when I tell you my story. I can laugh about it. I look at it back today and I'm very happy. And I'm not saying, it's an experience that I wish on anybody. Absolutely not. That's not where I'm coming from. But it's the way how I went through this. it made me part of the person I am today.
Correct, yeah.
And that is a very positive thing that happened there to me, looking back from today's perspective, where I actually got to as a person. And therefore, I have absolutely no negative connection to my personal cancer story whatsoever. It's overall just positive, and I got out of it and say, like, if I can do it, anybody can benefit from it. Anybody can do it. Anybody should read, should listen to this story, and hopefully get something positive out of it.
Yes, you touched on something interesting there about mentoring. A lot of people that go through a cancer journey, feel their purpose or the want or need or desire to, help others to go through it, from that, in the future.
Yeah.
How did you get to mentor patients through cancer? What was the process? How did they get to you to be mentored?
It wasn't actually that I mentored cancer patients. What I did mentoring at work and at university, in my profession, basically. And it wasn't so much that I felt because of my cancer journey, I want to start mentoring. It was more a fact of an effect of realization that is what I can do. Because by telling my story, when I was at hospital, I had the nurses, they were all sitting in my room instead of their break room, because I was telling the stories and they loved listening to it, to the point that I could walk into their room, get myself proper coffee rather than from a machine. It's like I was the only one allowed to do that. Nobody else could go into the nurses room. And it's this sort of thing where I then realize, I've got to sing with people, and it's just something I enjoy. It's something that comes really natural, where I say, like, that is a good thing. That is what I would love doing.
I think we've got a couple of minutes left. You've been fantastic, by the way, and extremely enjoyable. This has been a really enjoyable interview. I think I know the answer to this, but I'd like you to be as specific as you can. I like to end this by saying, what golden nuggets could you give anyone going through testicular cancer? I think that's be specific to that, because it's what you had. I'd like to ask you for 2 or 3, because I think you've got quite a lot in your locker. But as many as you give those golden nuggets, someone gets diagnosed with testicular cancer, what are the 3 golden nuggets you would tell them or give them to take away?
The very first thing is, as soon as you feel anything is not right on there, see a doctor. There's no doubt about it. It's the most important thing ever. I mean, if you value what you have down there, you should be doing that anyway. But it is, many people feel like a barrier to go to a doctor and say, I have some problems down there with my mindest. It's stupid. Don't do it. If there is something, you go. The second one, if the diagnosis is the same that I had, or in fact any cancer diagnosis, keep a little bit of your naivety. If you don't have it, develop it. Be like a little child that goes onto that field for the first time to see a cow. Because if you don't, you go into a dark place very, very quickly.
I can relate to that.
Yeah. And the third one, if you are in that dark place, look for help, because it is there. People are there. People are so much better than we think. We are so spoiled by a really, really bad media that always tells us that everybody is against you and everybody's fighting for themselves. It's not true. As people, we are social beings, so we are there to help each other. And that is what people do. If you voice your opinion and say, I need help, people will come.
Falk, absolutely fantastic. Look, thank you for your interview. It's really enjoyable. You've been really incredible. This is Hear the Raw podcast. I am Paul Schneider. Falk, thank you so much. I'll speak to you soon. And again, on behalf of everyone listening to this,
it's a pleasure. Let's have the second part.
Thank
you very much.
Take care.
Cheers.